Hey everybody, it's Coach Steve. We're going to talk a little bit today about distance control with your wedges, specifically your finesse wedges, and that's anything that's kind of inside of 65 yards. You want to try to flight the ball low when you can. The reason for this is if you try to hit a high ball flight, there's a high chance that you're going to hit the ball thin, and then you're going to end up with a double bogey because the ball is going to go too far. Those high-lofted shots, those lob shots, are considered to be specialty shots, which you should really only implement when you have to. The standard shot should be considered sort of a low-flighted, spinny sort of wedge shot. Now, once we get outside of 65 yards, some of the principles about how you do that change, and therefore I'm just going to talk about sort of the close range pitches. And when I take out my wedge, I've got a 54 and a 58 degree wedge. I'm going to do the same technique with both of them, and I have the same bounce angle in both of those wedges, so I can do both of those techniques identically. And all I'm doing when I take a higher lofted club is I'm just increasing what's called my spin loft. Now, for those of you who don't know the term spin loft, all that means is the difference between your vertical attack angle and your dynamic loft. That's the loft that you present to the ball at impact. Now, the further we can get those two things apart from each other, the more spin loft you have. And there's just sort of a happy medium that we want to reach so that we can get those low-flighted shots that stop when they hit the ground within 2 to 4 yards. Sort of like an F-15 landing on an aircraft carrier. You don't want it to go off the edge. You want it to stop within an acceptable distance. And so the way I teach most people to do that, although there are some different types of players with different grip types, and this will vary a little bit. So I just recommend putting the ball in the middle of the stance with fairly narrow stance and keeping the shaft lean at address to a minimum. Really just try to go with a 2, maybe maximum 5 degrees of shaft lean. And then what you're going to do, because that lets that 12 degrees of bounce, which I referred to earlier, still be in play. There's at least 7 degrees there in play. And that means I can allow the club to glide on the ground, and I don't have to worry about like catching with the leading edge into the turf. Now I'm just going to try to rock a little bit forward, so I'm actually going to move my entire body, my center of gravity, in front of the ball, and that will produce a downward attack angle. But how do I get the dynamic loft up? Well, this is the trick. You've got to let the shaft go. You've got to let it release. You've got to try to basically restore that angle as quickly as possible. Now, don't hear me wrong. I'm not saying let the club overtake your hands before impact. I'm just saying here we don't want to have lag. We actually want to let the shaft restore the angle so that it brushes the grass and doesn't dig. So now I've done both things which I talked about. I've decreased my attack angle and I've increased my dynamic loft. What will generally result is about a 30-degree launch angle, and the ball from this distance, and I'm about 45 yards from the pin, is going to spin about 6,500. Now, if you don't have a TrackMan, you're probably not acquainted with these numbers, that's okay. You still want to look for a relatively low-flighted pitch shot, which then hits the ground and stops within an acceptable distance. Okay, let's give it a go. So you might be wondering why go to the trouble to do such a specialty shot. Well, the reason being is that if you flight the ball low, you're just going to have better distance control because you're expending less energy to get the ball to the hole. If I've got to work hard and create a lot of club head speed to get the ball up, there's a lot more that can happen. So low flighted shots are just better for distance control. The only caveat is we need the ball to stop. So we have to play around with that spin loft to get the ball to hit the parking brake as soon as it hits the green. Okay, have fun with that one. We'll see you guys next time.